Oh, it's you, Hibbo. Why am I putting you on? Hang on a minute. Here we go. That's what I was trying to start it with. This look.
Things are going well for England already, huh?
Well, you know what it is. You've got to hold and give. You've got to do it at the right time. It can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you. You know this? I'm trying to remember it. I've not even got it on the screen now. How are you doing, boys? Nemo's disappeared. We don't know where he is. I'll let you lot think that because he's still on his honeymoon, I think. So you can all make your own mind about that. Boys, it's a big weekend. But it's a big weekend for FPL as well. Hello, everybody. Mariner here. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Net That Haul and our third show of the season where we're going to cover strategies. So I'm joined by my merry men, crewmates, fellow Robin Hoods. We call ourselves a few things these days. Gabe, Phoenix, Arizona. How are you, mate?
Hi, doing well. It's hot, so I have to drink everything in a container like this. That's all right. So cheers. Cheers.
Looks like it's hot in Derry as well, Neem. Hibbo, it looks like it's hot there. You're on a bit of black stuff, right?
Oh, hardy bit.
And Neem, we don't know where he is. We'll add him in later anyway. But everything all right? Are you all excited about the football this weekend?
Yeah, I think it's been a great tournament. And it's very much a big weekend for England and for yourself. So looking forward to the final. And once we get past the final, we're going to really hit the ground running, I think, AFP always. I
think so. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. I think there's a lot of people just waiting to start pressing buttons on content, really.
Definitely.
But for now, I'm going to enjoy this. I've banned everything Italian from the house for the weekend. So, this is how it's going to be.
I'm planning a party tomorrow night. So we're actually going to have some pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
Some antipasti and maybe a bit of garlic bread.
Yeah.
Garlic bread.
Yeah. Just finish it off with a bit of gelato, eh?
Fuck gelato.
Guinness gelato, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, right, let's keep moving. What did we say? We said this section is going to take 5 minutes. That's what we said. Oh, hang on a minute. I'll let the other clown in. Oh, here he comes. Right. Hello, mate.
I think it looks like Nima just got laid. That's a nice lay you're wearing there.
Oh my god!
Thank you. We couldn't go to Hawaii on a honeymoon, so I made do.
Outstanding. Right, let's keep going before we run out of time. So as people, we're obviously keen on the charity thing. We keep pushing it every week, but please, if you hit that subscribe button as well, because when we get to 1,000 followers, and we're moving that way now, we are going to donate to charity. We're going to put a poll up, I think, to decide as to which charity we're going to support. We did talk about this in private chat during the week, but never got to do it. But it costs you nothing, and it costs us something. So subscribe, right? Whether you hate England or not, whether I'm driving you crazy with the flag or not, it doesn't matter. Football's coming home. FPL's coming home. Get support. Support the pod. And of course, if you are listening to the pod, do come across to the YouTube channel and subscribe as well. Very quickly on to other stuff. Join our mini league. This is the last of the announcements. The code is FG1XNB. Come in, try and beat the gang. We're trying to get some decent. We've got quite a few decent players in there now as well. I've just had to spot one or two names who you'll all know. It's always good to take them on as well. And as promised, we have news of prizes this week. Matt Whelan at FPL_obsessed has written a book, FPL Obsessed, believe it or not. And he's offered a prize either as a signed hard copy or alternatively as a Kindle. #ad. It's also available on Amazon if you want to buy that. I've proofread it. It's great. Also, Fantasy Football Fix have kindly offered us a 1-year subscription as a prize too. So thank you very much to everybody. I'm hoping there will be more prizes as well. So guys, let's get into it. So last week, we talked about fixture difficulties. and the different ones. And I think it generated quite a bit of debate. So I was pleased with that. This week, we're going to look at some more of the different parts of the FPL puzzle, pre-season puzzle, shall we say. And again, it's all about provoking thought rather than spoon feeding. That's not what that haul does, right, boys? We want you to think for yourself, but we want to try and provoke thought. What we're going to cover this week: team structures, fixture swings, fixture blocks, fixture rotations, are the challenges of owning new assets. Jadon Sancho is going to come up in Lens's presentation. Hopefully, I think it's a big one. We might need to extend the show. I don't know, but anyway, we're also
we'll fly through it.
Yeah, we're also going to have a look at building team value as well. And a special shout out for Josh and Brandon at Always Cheating. We are, as always, making this show MFFA. Make fantasy fun again. I cannot endorse that anymore. I love it. And I did say I would give them a shout out today. So there we go. Developed by Always Cheating, fantastic pod, and we fully subscribe to MFFA. Isn't that right, Hibbo?
Completely. The game should be fun. You know, yes. It shouldn't be this serious thing. It should be something that adds a bit of value to how you watch football. Like, you know, that's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So right, let's get in. So the first section is team structure, and there we go. We've got some chess pieces because it's actually a game which is people who play chess do very well at FPL, as we know. So what we're going to do to start with is we're going to concentrate on team structure, and for this section, Nima's going to help me. We're going to use the pre-season tools within Fantasy Football Fix, and again, #ad. We want to point you at the comments for the video in YouTube and the channel description. So hit the link below, and you will receive a discount of 65% on Fantasy Football Fix standard pricing, and also claim your own fixture strategy guide if you join through that link. So if you care to, feel free. So Nima, using the structure, I'm going to run through what I think are my golden rules, and then I'm going to bring you in. So my golden rules are: create teams with a spread of price points. Okay, that's the first one. Avoid the scenario where you need to make 2 transfers to get onto a player or a price point. Try to keep a little bit of money in the bank to avoid being priced out early. And the other one, and I'm going to leave it in, COVID is still around. So late moves are the way to go, and make sure you probably have at least, I'm saying, 2 playing players on the bench. And number 5, pick Mo Salah. Because if you don't, you're an idiot. That's my rules anyway. And just to talk about what's on the screen for the people who are listening to this, what we've put up is we've put the quad structures from Fix. It actually shows my average position on the left-hand side for the season just gone, and it just shows the price points of the various players. So if you are listening, do come to YouTube to check it out. I think it's important to see this visually. The one we're going to concentrate on is the all-time top 50 cost per position. Okay, and that's what we're going to try and do. So what do we see from that? Well, we see that the all-time top 50 always tend to go with a maximum 5 million priced goalkeeper and one at 4.5 or 4, budget 9.5. Defensively, 3 assets at 5 million or below, 1 a little bit higher, and 1 possible what you'd term premium defender. Midfielder, a 4.5 to 5 enabler, a 5.5 to 6.5 punter, a 7 to 9.5 mid-price, and possibly 1 or 2 premiums. It could be 1 or 2 mid-prices as well. And forwards, a relatively cheap one, a mid-priced one, and a premium one. Okay. Nima, first comments on the top 50 structure, or just generally on the slide and what I've just said. What's your view?
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting tool from Fix. So it's actually quite nice to see this based on what position people are in the world. I would say that I definitely play FPL from a price structure perspective. So I've never kind of been one to have a, say, 5.5 million fifth mid, because I wouldn't want to have someone like, say, Dallas this season as my fifth mid. He would be my fourth mid and I'd play him every week. I wouldn't bench him. So I'm someone who likes to have like a third striker or fifth midfielder who's the cheapest possible player in the game. I like to have a second goalkeeper that's the cheapest player in the game. I want a 4 mil defender. So this doesn't surprise me, I'd say, because I feel like a lot of people now with the information out there that's available to us, they play this kind of price structure field game. So you kind of have maybe the most expensive player to start the season, I would say. And then that way you're not going to need 2 moves and a -4 or a -8 to navigate to them if they pop off in game week 1, game week 2. So like, you know, if you start with Davies, is it, or Davis, a 4.5 million forward this year as your third striker, and then suddenly Kane becomes someone who you want, you're not going to be able to just move to Kane.
No.
So for me, I think it is vital to have at least one striker, one midfielder, and one defender who are all at almost the maximum price in their position, so you can kind of navigate to anywhere with no hits early on.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And Davis is a good example, because another player, everyone focuses towards this. If you want that 4.5 million player, you focus at Davis, but then you might not be able to get that third Aston Villa asset, which you might want as well. So that's another really important point. Maybe that should have been number 6. So always think about, you know, the number of players that you've got for a particular team as well, and who you might want going forwards. So that's the introduction to it. So let's now look at 5 different very basic drafts. Okay. So the first draft is structure 1, which is 2 premium midfielders. So we're looking at the all-time top 50 and comparing the structures. These are, and it is always a caveat, and you know I'm good at that. I'm nearly as good as Gabe at caveats. What do they call him? Sleepy Joe? Did you call him the other day?
Get off the fence, Sleepy Joe.
Get off the fence, Sleepy Joe. But these are players which are placeholders for price. So you can obviously mix and match, do what you want. This is by no means the draft that I am going to go with, but I'm just trying to fix it around the price points. So keep it as a high-level thought. So, okay, let's go for it. So this team has 2 premium midfielders. And you'll see on the left the squad structure against that all-time top 50. So you'll see that second midfielder is moving up to a premium. Okay, so that's now going to be Salah and Mane, or Salah and Bruno, probably. Would be where I would go there. But by doing that, the forward probably has to, the premium forward has to drop. And that, as you see, then creates your gap. So we're going to come back to this type of stuff. So anyway, so what it does, as I say, it dictates that second midfielder moving up, and it dictates that the premium forward goes down to either a 7.5 or potentially junk. And what it gives us is it gives us an 8.5 pricing for goalkeepers in total, and that's less than the top 50 on average. 26 million for defenders, which is within the top 50. 43.5 for midfielders, which is more expensive than the top 50, and 21.5 forwards, which is below. Basically, we're moving money into midfield from the forwards on this type of template. Nima, positives and negatives to this type of structure. I think it's going to be popular.
Yeah, so interestingly, I think I said this in the opening show of the preseason. I'm quite a template player, and this feels like my kind of formation. So it's very safe to start, I think. It kind of gives you coverage. You're very flexible, and your formation is another positive I would be looking at. So I'm someone who likes to go from a 3-4-3 to a 4-4-2, depending on if my fourth defender has a good fixture and maybe one of my mids can be benched instead that week, or my third striker has a bad game. It does allow you to have like a premium defender like a Trent. So I think if we were to hear that like Kane went to City, I don't think you could have Trent and also have your 2 premium mids plus Kane. So for now, I feel like this is the most common draft I'm seeing online with the 2 premium mids. But I have a feeling that people won't be able to look past Kane and 2 premium mids when the time comes. So Trent's going to have to be a sacrifice, in my opinion, at that point. The forward line's quite good. So this has been like how I normally like to play with 3 decently priced options. It does allow you to kind of drop to someone at their price point if they do really badly. But one thing I would say is, just going back to your point on the previous slide, don't be afraid to leave money in the bank, because actually, although like you might have a 7.5 forward or a 6.5 forward and you think, oh, I can just do a like-for-like swap if my guy does badly. Well, you know, on the first night after game week 1 matches, it's likely that if your striker blanked, they're going to drop 0.1 and the striker you want to bring in is going to go up 0.1. So you're going to be priced out immediately, and you're going to need a 0.5 million to soak that if you want to wait till the end of the game week for your transfers. So that's my main tip, is those first 4 to 8 weeks is when the most transfer activity happens, the most volatile price swings happen. Leave some money in the bank. This formation is great, but do leave money so you can swap to other assets if yours fail. That would be my thinking.
Can I add something to that there, Nima? I think that's a really good point. But at the beginning of the season, I know for one that the way I play, I won't be waiting until the end of the week to make my transfers. I would use that 0.5 in my bank to maybe if I have to upgrade. But I'm at the beginning of the season, I'm the type of player that I want to ride those price swings quite aggressively initially. So I'd probably get in there to get the price rise.
Well, that's a good point you make. So like last year, for instance, I only took a -32 in hits, I think. So what is that, like 8 hits over the course of the season? I think I took about 5 of those hits in the first 4 game weeks or so. So I took a -4 in game week 2 to bring in Bruno. I had him ever since kind of game week 2. So you are right about that. I think one option here to look at, though, is that you could actually have the cheaper striker, as we were saying earlier, like a 4.5 forward, and have an upgrade to your 4.5 mid instead to someone like Saka, Buendia, maybe even Trossard.
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
A quick point I'd like to make about this structure in general is, like, at the minute we don't know. Well, Brandon Williams at the minute isn't a viable 4 million defender. Foster's 4 million and he doesn't play. Foster's quite heavily owned. If I was picking a 4 million keeper, I would pick somebody that's ownership isn't very high, because there's always a chance that people are going to jump off and he's going to drop in price. And this is a point that John Chappelle's made in the chat. So, look, there's 99.5 million spent here. Like, if I was looking at this team and I'm looking at, say, Grealish, what I would probably do is go Grealish to Buendia, free up an extra bit of cash, and I would maybe beef up Williams.
I think that's great. I mean, and these are great points that people are making. But as I say, don't shoot the person who made the slides. I'm simply just dropping price points in, and I think that's the most important thing.
And
I agree
as
with
far as price points. We don't have a 4.0 playing player at the moment.
No. Newcastle lad.
Is Manquillo going to play?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. It's crazy. He's like 10% on.
Right. Okay. Let's move on to the next structure then. So structure 2 is 3 premiums. So now we're really going for it, boys. And as you'll see, the midfielder is moving up again. That 10.5 midfielder is moving up, but now also the forward, the 10 million forward, is going now to uber premium because that's Harry Kane, right? So, okay, look at that. And then what happens with that structure? Well, that mid-price midfielder has to go down, and you no longer have Trent. Okay, so that's, look at, and I've highlighted that red box there. To me, I can see this being quite popular because people, particularly if, I mean, I don't know if Kane is going to go to City, but if he did, it would be this type of structure would be, I think, pretty popular. But look at the gap there, Nima. I mean, to me, that gap in midfield's a real problem because I think this really takes a lot of flexibility away. The goal, I've just quickly run through the numbers. Goalkeepers remain the same. Defensively, now 24 million, less than the top 50. Midfielders, 41 million within, and it's the high end of forwards for obvious reasons, price-wise, against the top 50. There's not in the bank here. I'd need to try and find 0.5 probably. But again, I'm just trying to fit these players in and damn the consequences, more or less, at this moment in time. So, Nima, your view on this one?
Yeah, so I'd actually disagree on the flexibility comment, just because this is something I do play quite a bit. So all of last season, I think I had 3 premiums. So I had kind of Kane, Salah, Fernandes. I think it was these same premiums, in fact. And I agree with the fact that my 11th man was always pretty weak. So I always had like 10 players I was happy with. But my kind of 4th mid, or my 4th, my 4th mid, my 3rd striker, or my 4th defender, depending on what formation I was playing that given week, it was always kind of like a bad fixture, and they were playing for a mediocre team. So I felt like it was okay, though, because it still meant that I had more captaincy options. So I'm someone who really likes to have maybe 2 to 3 good captaincy options any given week. Yeah. So I think this year, like, I'll probably look at the first 5 game weeks or so and make sure that I have at least 2 options to 3 options per game week. But I see what you mean. I think the biggest downside of this formation is that you can't really move to any emerging midfielders. So, like, you're not going to downgrade Salah or Fernandes in this scenario. So what are you really going to do between Rafinha, Brownhill, and Smith Rowe? So, you know, if suddenly like Havertz or Grealish pop off, you're a bit stuck. Like, you can't really get to them in one move, and you probably don't want to downgrade Kane. Then it's like, what do you have to do? Your defense is already cheap. So, like, I did find that last year I was struggling to get on the likes of, say, Lingard, and I just lost those points because there was no viable way for me to get there ever with this kind of premium heavy formation. And I think the captaincy options are the positive there.
That's right. I mean, what I would say is that if we're talking about building price and building value in your team later, of course, later on in the season, this might be viable if you've got 106 or 107 in the bank. But to start with, I think it is quite inflexible, is my view. And I agree with you. You know, you could go into this in a view of, I am going to lose one of the 2 or one of the 3 premiums. I'm going to lose the worst one. You know, you could start that way and then go that way. Gabe, any view on this one?
So this one, I find, is one that happens kind of organically as we build some value into our team, like you just mentioned, Mariner. But I find it even in those moments, it can be a little bit of a trap for the reasons that Nima mentioned. I mean, you could even stretch this one a little bit further. Nima was talking about the 5.5 million midfielder, how that's kind of a price point to avoid, right? It's usually you're paying extra, and the benefits that you get are somewhat unpredictable because it's usually an inconsistent player. So you might, as if that's the case, with that in mind, I think you could downgrade Smith Rowe and get $1 million out of him, because you might as well just have Bissouma or someone like that if you're going to have Smith Rowe, right? And then you could either add some flexibility to your team by doing that, by dropping that midfielder, or you could stretch it even further if you're really, you know, somebody that enjoys risk and pain. And try to upgrade a defender, try to get to Trent, for example. You know, that
it would be, again, I think the general point I'm making, though, is the more premium heavy you go, the harder it is to move around, you know, with that flexibility, you know, not having to make 2 transfers here and there, you know, which all want to try and avoid to start with. You know, don't have transfers ready to lock in, right?
The value in the game is in the mid, and as far as points per million goes, is in the mid-priced defenders. So taking money out of mid-priced defenders to get to premiums, the value in the game is not in the premium players. Those are the captaincy picks. So taking money away from value into something expensive is not good, and necessarily to begin FPL or in life, to be perfectly honest.
Life lessons by Sleepy Joe.
That's right.
The next one, structure 3, 1 premium. So now let's stretch the envelope a bit. So pricing wise, this is probably the closest to the all-time template, which I showed you right at the start. There's only 1 arrow there, and that's that midfielder coming down a little bit. Okay. So, and this one has 1.5 million in the bank. So this is my non-Sancho gamble side. So in other words, I've got that money up to 10.5 million for Sancho if I want it, and starting with someone like Havertz. Okay, so that's the idea here. Again, running through the structure, goalkeepers 8.5 million again, defenders 26 million, midfielders 40, forwards 24, all within the structure of that premium squad. Is this realistic though, Nima? I suppose it does depend how fast Sancho hits the ground running, and I know that's been a debate that we've been on in the WhatsApp chat now for 2 or 3 days, and I know Gabe's covering it later. So
yeah, we won't say too much about Sancho specifically, but about the structure itself. So I guess you kind of said this. This is probably the closest to the all-time squad, but there is not really any captaincy option. So I feel like if Salah has a bad fixture, like in game week 3, like just looking at this now, like I guess you could captain Watkins in game week 3 in this team, maybe Iheanacho. Werner's got a bad game. Trent has a bad game. You're kind of stuck, right? Like, and I think what this kind of formation leads you to do, which I don't like doing personally, is it encourages you to captain defenders, because every once in a while you'll want to go against your one premium midfielder and you don't really have anyone else there worth captaining. So I feel like it's just too spread out, too thin. I'd rather stack my team with the 3 premiums than have the 1. I think obviously the 2 premiums is more balanced, but if I had to pick between this and the last one, I'd go for the 3 premiums personally.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this is right up your street, Hibbo, because I think we're probably going to break the template to the start of the season. Would you agree?
Maybe, but like if I'm looking at this team, like I have a major issue with this, and the fact that the spread of the cash is too wide. I think 1 premium player is definitely not how I would play the game. Like I would be 2 at a minimum. I usually push the boat out and go 3. And like looking at the 3 premium slide we looked at in the slide past, I think we could have squeezed it out a wee bit more by not having, say, Reece James in defence. You would have freed up an extra million. You maybe could have beefed up, say, the like ESR, maybe Sar or maybe Buendia. And I think the 3 premiums workable. I think this is going to lead you to trouble if you're trying to move to, say, 2 or 3 premiums. If the premiums come out of the blocks firing, I think this side's in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main point, right? So I'd rather downgrade my 3rd premium to like an 8 mil because they're doing well than be stuck and not be able to go to a premium in the first place.
No, you're right. And I mean, look, as I said, don't shoot the person who put the players in. But I'm trying to make not necessarily arguments, but
it's thought provoking. It's good.
I want to provoke the thought. Some people might be going, do you know what? I've seen this on Chris's slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build my team structure around the all-time top 50 structure. And what we're saying is it could leave you chasing the game early on with very few captain options.
Well, I wouldn't pick Werner number 1.
Yeah,
I put him in for just the price for the flexibility of cross midfield. You can always downgrade him, and he's got a good first fixture, right?
He's a definition of all fart, no shite, really, isn't he? Like,
I think Werner and Havertz is too much shades of last season. We're in a new year now. We can't start with both Havertz and Werner again.
But you know what? These guys could be good this year, but like I don't like the Chelsea fixtures. We'll move on to that. But
no, we'll come on to that later. Right, next one then, boys. So structure 4, big at the back. So now we're getting into Shom territory here, because I mean we really need Shom on for this, because Shom's the big at the back merchant in our gang. He loves it. So the wish,
he loves the junk in the trunk.
So, oh god. So the wish, to maintain these 2 premium midfielders really dictates this green arrow of that second midfielder moving up, as we've said. But we want to pump more money into defence, so that probably means if you wanted to do that, you're going to struggle to keep that premium forward. So this is a Kane-less option potentially if you're going to go big at the back or bigger at the back. And that then means that defensive-wise, we're going up to 27.5 million, which is above the template. Midfielders 44.5 above the template, and forwards 19.5 below the template. And as you see, we're having to move these forwards down considerably, to a couple of 7.5s and a junk, if you wanted to do that way, if you wanted to keep these premiums. Now, of course, the midfield is, again, we've already mentioned about the Smith Rowe sat in there. He could be Brownhill. Brownhill's the player I've actually singled out at 4.5 million, boys, personally. But we've got Fernandes, Salah, Rafinha, Grealish, and Smith Rowe. So there is money to be made and to be saved there, which might get us back up closer to a better third striker. But apart from that, Nima, what's your perspectives?
So I think I prefer this one because you still have the 2 premiums, and then you've also got the Man City defender. You can play a 5 midfield as well. So I really like this. I think 3-5-2 or kind of 4-4-2 are my preferred formations generally. So maybe this is actually closer to what I'd go with. It is a bit too heavy, I'd say. So similar to like what we were saying earlier, like if a really nice striker appeared within the first 2 game weeks, you're going to struggle to get the money out of Trent, Shaw, and Diaz, and you're probably not going to want to make defensive transfers that early. So it's a difficult one. I don't know if I'd start a season like this. I'd probably move towards this after my first wild card, I think, once I've built some value by having more flexibility in other positions. Because that third striker, the fact that he doesn't start, that's a deal breaker for me. I know last year everyone went for Brewster. That was a bit of a rogue one too. I know he's your favourite, isn't he?
Fiery Brewster.
So I think I'd prefer a Basuma. Yeah, like I'd prefer a Basuma just because at least I know he plays. That's the only issue here. But equally, like I'd rather have a 5th midfielder who's got more potential than Basuma. So it's a bit of a tough one. If we find a striker that's going to start for 5.5 mil, maybe the next Bamford. Hopefully we won't laugh at him. So I'm looking at the new signings coming in and
maybe Josh
for a
Kane.
5.5. Yeah, maybe like I'm hoping I'm hoping it's him.
I've just seen
Josh
King signed for Watford.
Yeah, Watford. But actually, I was looking at this a little bit differently, and rather than looking to upgrade that forward spot, if I were going bigger at the back, I would definitely go 4-4-2 and upgrade maybe some like Fofana. Or you could upgrade Fofana to a 5.5 and upgrade Williams to a 4.5 by downgrading, or to a 5.0 and Williams to a 4.5 by downgrading Smith Rowe to Brownhill.
Yeah. So I think you might find, Gabe, if we move to the next one, this is bigger.
Bigger versus
even
big.
Okay, this is where we're going. So, sorry to cut you off there, but I think you actually naturally took us towards this last.
Well, you did both in this one, right? You upgraded the forward and you upgraded that defensive spot. I was talking about more of like a 20
right.
Kind
yeah.
of
Sorry.
right?
Sorry. I mean, just moving on to this last one because I'm a bit mindful of time. I know people quite like that structure 4 in the chats, but this is big at the back. But look what I've done here. What I've done here is we're big at the back. We've still got those midfielders. There's still 2 big midfielders. I just thought I'd put Mane in for a bit of a chuckle. And just to test see what the chats come out. I would like to hear these because I finished with Mane and Salah, as you know, at the end of last season. But the issue here, of course, is that it's a long way from template. We've got those premiums. The premium forward, we're basically flat across the forwards at 7.5. We've got 29 million in defence. Diaz, James, Alexander-Arnold, Shaw, and an ode to Gabe, Rob Holding.
There he is, watching that ball.
And we've got none in the bank. Nima, we've got good defenders in place to capitalise on these expected, should we say, top 4 clean sheets there. But there's that midfield hole again. What's your perspective?
I think I prefer this. I'd rather have that third striker spot than have the dead striker and Davis in the previous iteration. So I think the 4 defenders, they're far better than the last. So actually, this would be my preferred choice. I would just take the sacrifice here. So if I went for this option, I wouldn't kind of start worrying about the grass being greener on the other side and start taking hits to sell my defender to get a better midfielder in. I would just play this kind of formation and I would just bite the bullet and go with it. Even if it looks like it's going badly for a week or two, I'll kind of say, well, that means my returns are due. So I'll just keep waiting until I get those points, because those 4 defenders, I would expect all 4 of them to do well as long as James starts consistently.
I mean, that's the point, isn't it? That's
like I would back James over my alternate options in midfield for that same price.
Yeah, and what we haven't mentioned, we all these drafts have Sanchez in, and that's just because I wanted to just do it around the price points of the structures. But Hibbo, come to you. A 5 million Manchester United goalkeeper, is that just too good to ignore?
It depends. Now, what I would say, well, firstly, we don't really know who the Manchester United goalkeeper is going to be. We're going to assume that it's going to be Henderson. Now, what I would say about Henderson is, if United make the signings that they're going to make, you would expect them to be good at the back. Now, the only point is, he's not going to get any bonus because Bruno's going to absorb bonus. They're talking about signing Kane. United attackers are going to get the bonus, whereas you look at Martinez last year, he played in a team where nobody was really soaking up the bonus, and that's what made him such an attractive pick, especially at 4.5. So I think if you're looking at your 4.5 goalkeeper, you want to be looking at a team where they don't really have attackers that are going to bring home the bacon, and that's probably Brighton.
Interesting. It's very interesting because, I mean, as I say, Gabe and I have spoke about Henderson. I mean, I'm a bit biased towards Henderson, as I say, because I saw him play at Grimsby. I absolutely love the man. I think he's a ledge. But yeah, that bonus point is a really good one. It's something I hadn't thought about. So, well,
Luke Shaw will also have those bonus
Luke Shaw will have
it'll be Bruno, it'll be Shaw.
Yeah, and Nehal in the chat saying Melier at 5 is going under the radar as well.
Yeah.
The beauty of Henderson when he was at Sheffield United was he made a lot of saves. Now, it's not going to be the same scenario at United. He's not going to be making as many saves. Now, I know United aren't like super tight at the back at the minute, but if they sign Varane or Camavinga in the midfield, are they going to be super tight? Maybe, but I don't see him making as many saves. They make him like a bonus merchant, like, you know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's that section, guys. So I hope you enjoyed it, everybody who was listening to it, and I hope it's given some challenge and a bit of thought process. And I think that's all we're trying to do now is just trying to generate that thought process. And I've seen some interesting chats saying, this is where I am. This is about where I am at the moment. Oh, I like that one. This is exactly what we wanted. So hopefully that's achieved that. So that's one tick in the box. So. Right.
I think, sorry, just before you go on, I was going to say, John Chappelle makes a really good point about having that United keeper. I do think I wouldn't want to risk limiting my free slots with United.
Yes.
So there is that. But also on Meslier, like I know people are saying he's going under the radar, but I'd rather have Luke Ayling at 4.5 million, personally speaking.
You're lucky. You're channeling your inner Dallas, aren't you? That's what you are.
I just think... seeing his celebration with his hair down with the offside goal, I'm looking for. I want to be there doing the gifts when he finally gets
when it
his
really
first
happens.
return. Yeah.
So right, let's move on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to fixture swings and blocks, and also rotation. And for this, I thought we'd have a little compass on the screen, since that's what Hibbo's actually going to be involved in this year on the show. So we're going to come to you, Hibbo, on this. So let's have a quick look through at what we've got. So let me just set the scene. So when we start building a team, from my perspective, one of the most important points, as well as the fixture difficulties, is where we're actually looking at a point of time where we might want to be jumping on or off assets. So it could be after a fairly favourable long run of fixtures or after a block of them, in my perspective. So I've highlighted a couple of examples here for attack, and I think for me, and this is quite interesting, I do remember last year West Ham's fixture swing around, I think it was around game week 9, was really stark. They went from having shocking fixtures to a run of really good ones, and it was dead easy to spot that. And I was sat there going, Thomas Souček, you know, waiting for it to happen. I think here it's a bit more subtle. What's your view to start with, Hibbo?
I don't know. Like if I'm looking at the fixtures to start, I'm not overly enamored by Chelsea's fixtures or Man City's fixtures. Whenever I'm looking at the blocks, I really particularly like Liverpool's fixtures to start and Man United's fixtures to start. So that's kind of whenever I go to build my draft, because I haven't built one yet, but that's where I'm going to kind of focus my attentions, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they're solid all the way through, right? They're solid right the way. We've only got the first 10 weeks up on the screen, guys, just to let you know. But they're green all the way through, right?
They are.
Surprising.
Now, like in terms of premium players, like I would look at, say, blocks of fixtures because I want to have captaincy candidates for the first couple of weeks. And I don't really want to chop and change my premium players too much. And I would like to attack kind of certain blocks of fixtures. So if I thought that Liverpool had a fairly strong run, and so did United, the chances are I would like triple up the start on both teams if I fancied it, you know.
Right. Okay. Right.
Can I ask? How would you triple up? Do you know if you would go more attack or how would you make the price points work?
At the minute, like I'm kind of looking at United and I'm going, Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes. I would have two, maybe Sancho, but I think there's question marks over kind of England players. What kind of break they're going to be given after the Euros. And I think that's something we have to think about generally. Like, you know, are these boys going to be given a holiday? I can see at the minute West Ham played a friendly match against Dundee United maybe today. And like how far are these England players going to be off pre-season? Are they going to, is Kane going to be ready to go in the first game week of the season? I don't think they are going to be. And I think that's going to kind of, we're not thinking about that now, but I think as the season kind of comes closer, we're going to think, oh no, there's noise that these boys maybe aren't going to start the season, and we're maybe going to be looking at players that weren't involved in the latter stages of the Euros. But no, I do like for Liverpool, I like Trent, obviously, I like Salah. I think Robertson could work to a certain extent. I've kind of looked at a draft where I've actually looked at a draft where I had Henderson, Shaw, Robertson, and Trent, believe it or not. They try and
sorry, I think the interesting point about this, if you look at Liverpool, is they are positive on both sides, of attack and defence. And I think although so fairly positive on defence, I'll come on to defence in a minute, they are still positive fixture difficulties when we come to them. So when we look at that, I think a Liverpool defender is actually probably feasible, especially given that the fixture difficulty is based off a team which did not have Van Dijk. And remember what we said last week about what's changed. You remember the fixture difficulty says this, but what's changed to it? And I think that's why I think Liverpool defence, I tend to agree with you.
Here I would pull you back to structure, right? So like see the boys now, I'm on a kind of sub forum, Nirvana, and the boys do an exercise called the Day Team Challenge. And when they looked at last season, they didn't have a defender. I think their defence for like the Day Team Challenge their team would have came overall ranked number one. This is like a hypothetical. They look back, it's a hindsight team. But their defence was like Stones, Dallas, Cresswell, Chilwell, and Bellerin, believe it or not. How cheap are those defenders? Now, whenever you go back to the previous season, two of the defenders were Trent and Van Dijk. So are Liverpool going to improve enough to get two defenders back on the kind of the team of the season? I think potentially. So these boys could be big value at the kind of cheap price point, I think, whereas they weren't in the season going by and we were looking at kind of 12 million options or whatever. I think Liverpool defence could be valued.
Okay. Just focusing on the attack though for now before we go onto the defence a bit more. I've identified Chelsea and Leeds as being probably the two teams which I note a significant, shall we say, a swing around about game week 7. So Chelsea, Southampton home, Brentford away, Norwich home, Leeds, Watford at home, Southampton away, Wolves home, Norwich away. Leeds are not as good away from home, of course. That's one thing which is noticeable, I think, from memory. Was a certain time of day. I'm sure that's the case. Have you spotted any others, Hibbo, just with respect to straightforward swings? I know you said you'd probably leave Chelsea alone to start with. You've said this before, haven't you?
Yeah, so what I would say to you is, like, Villa and Leicester obviously have a nice opening period. Chelsea, I would probably leave them until game week 7. I like Liverpool to start. What I would say about Leeds is they have good fixtures from as early as game week 2. They've got like Everton, Burnley, Newcastle, West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves, Norwich the first 10 weeks. And what I'm going to say here now is, and I know nobody is picking these players in their drafts, Spurs have a lovely block from game week 2 to game week 4. They've got Wolves, Watford, and Crystal Palace. And we'll laugh now, but like, see when you're talking about breaking the template, what about Son? Son's 10 million. He's a 200-point player. And we would have looked at, say, KDB at 10 million and says, oh Jesus, he's great value. And we're looking at Son now and going 10 million, he's too dear. I'm not so sure. I think there's maybe an argument to kind of attack that 2 to 4 week or the block between game week 2 and game week 4 for Spurs. Maybe.
Okay, interesting. Right, moving across to defence then, I've just realised I've left the slide off and I've even left me notes off this. I sent this to you guys to check. Thanks, boys. 100% fail rate.
You sent this?
I think, actually, I don't even quite know what I've done. I think I've duplicated the slide. Let's move on. Here we go. This is the defence one. It's all your fault. Defence. This is why we don't edit things. This is why it's always such a good giggle, I think, when people watch these things back, especially with me suffering at 6:48 in the morning after a bottle of wine last night. I think that's the big difference. And you were the only one here on time. So
I think half of our viewers listen in to hear Marinus struggling in the morning.
So all right, defensively then. Now I've got the right slide on the bloody screen. I don't think we need to wait so long for fixture swings for me. I see an early swing potentially for Arsenal, which looks quite nice. Arsenal, of course, finished off pretty strongly with respect to defence at the end of last season. They kept, and this is probably one for Nima to come in on. And again, Leeds, I think, look to have, I think from game week 7 onwards, defensively is a bit more interesting to me. And just for the opposite example, look, I'm not saying anybody is going to go on to Brentford. Could have a Brentford defender. But let me show you an example of a negative, a fixture swing the opposite way. We're talking about positives, but let's talk about when you might, if you did own a Brentford defender, you would probably jump off them in game week 6 because their fixture difficulties, these are matchups, go from fairly neutral to slightly negative to minus 3.4, minus 1.1, minus 2.7, minus 2.4. Brentford are in a potential for a bit of a possible spanking between 6 and 9, in my opinion. So that's just the sort of way that you would look at this. Hibbo, first of all, you, and then Nima, I'll just bring you in on Arsenal if that's okay.
I think in terms of defence, Brighton fixtures obviously look good. I think at the minute it would be silly to not start with one. I don't think it would double up. Now, I think departures are going to play a factor. If Ben White leaves, Basuma, I know we've talked about this, I would potentially swerve them completely. I think Chelsea and United are probably wait until game week 7, game week 8 in terms of defence. Chelsea and Man City would wait until game week 7 and game week 8. But I think there's an argument at that stage when you're talking about swings to double up on Chelsea and Man City. Now, what I would say is they're the heaviest rotators in the league. So if you're going to go on that, you would want to have a keeper from their teams because you would need to have 2 playing defenders at, say, like 4th and 5th, because you couldn't have like 2 Man City defenders and 2 Chelsea defenders because you'll wake up someday and you'll not have a defence.
We've all done that recently. We've all done that in the last season, haven't we? But yeah, you make a great point because I actually picked up on, Man City and it's game week 8, Burnley, is it? Yeah. Burnley, Brighton, Palace, 8, 9, 10. I mean, that's double up territory, right? For sure.
I think you could do Mendy, Chilwell, like Diaz, like Son. I think you could have a fairly aggressive defence, but I think it's wait and see too. Like players are going to emerge. I think that's important to stress. Players are going to emerge here, and enablers are going to emerge. That's going to let us do certain things within the game.
Fair enough. And Nima, very quickly on Arsenal defence. Can I come to you?
Yes, I think although the swing starts in game week 4 with the Norwich, Burnley, Brighton, Palace games, if Ben White did go to Arsenal, I'd be tempted to just start with him and have him against Brentford and then bench him in game week 2 and 3 against Chelsea and City. So for me, he'd be my 5th defender, which is currently Williams. And I would just spend the extra 0.5 and get Ben White, play him a week, bench him twice, and have him so I don't have to worry about a defender transfer for a fixture swing. Yes. I'm not the type of player who wants to be bringing in defenders, even if it's a good fixture swing. I kind of want to have them already. Tierney at 5 million, I would say, if he can stay injury free, that could be quite an exciting prospect for me. But I'll wait and see on that one. And then finally, there is actually a team that no one's mentioned, but I don't know if it's just because like we've all been heavy on Sanchez in goal, but I know in the chat they're talking about kind of the Watford keepers as well. So I think is it Bachmann and Foster or Foster?
Yeah.
I found it interesting. There was an interview with Foster where he essentially said, "Oh no, like I wouldn't be at a club if I didn't believe I was number one." So
yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, like I don't know what that means for Bachmann, but I think Bachmann's number one. But having both of those for 8.5 isn't so bad, and I would consider that, and then maybe start with like a Lamperty or a Dunk in defence to take advantage of those good Brighton fixtures. I think Dunk was one of the highest scoring defenders, if not players, in the entire game in like the final quarter of the whole season. Because I benched him through most of those goals he scored. But yeah,
I think we've got so much data on Brighton that, for me, taking a risk on, like, we've got so much data on Brighton and we've got the fixtures on Brighton that taking a risk on kind of Watford defence and goalkeeper just wouldn't be for me.
But instead of a double up, right? So I'm saying I think there's more value from, say, like having a Watford goalkeeper, but then having a Brighton defender. Because if you're not going to have the Brighton defender and the goalkeeper, if you're not going to double up in that way, then it's kind of like, I don't really want a Watford defender. So really that only leaves their keeper for me. And it's just their fixtures. So if you look at their first fixtures for Watford, it's kind of Villa, Brighton, Spurs, Wolves, Norwich, Newcastle, Leeds. If you ask me in the first 7 weeks, the only game there that I consider tough is Spurs. I think they can easily get a clean sheet against any of the other 6 teams, personally.
I wouldn't touch it, if I'm being honest with you. Generally, like in that spot, I would probably go Sanchez and Lamptey and bench Lamptey if I didn't fancy the fixture.
Oh, just bench him, okay.
Do you know that's kind of.
So you would still double up. Just remember, you said you definitely wouldn't even maybe have one of them.
No.
Mark, you're like, I would just swerve there, and you're talking about doubling up. Just remember how quickly you U-turned there, Hibbo.
No. Like my stance on Brighton at the minute is, I like their defence as it is. If they start selling players, I'm not sure what I think about Brighton defence. So if Ben White leaves, if Basuma's potentially going to leave, I'm not sure what I think. But as is at the minute with the fixtures, I don't know if I would gamble on like a newly promoted team when I don't really know anything about them.
Fair enough. And I guess Leicester, Fofana, 4.5, those fixtures, Wolves, West Ham, Norwich, Brighton, Burnley, Palace. Like, I see what you're saying. Like, why not just go for one of those guys instead of risking it on a promoted team?
I think in terms of rotation, like, and I know we're maybe going to get on to rotation, but I think what really works in terms of rotation is Arsenal and Brighton works in rotation, Brighton and Leicester works. You know, there's a lot of good picks in that 4.5.
I think Leeds works really well, doesn't it, with Brighton maybe as well?
100%.
Yeah. I mean, guys, just to try and refocus us very quickly. Sorry to butt in. I just want to be a bit mindful of time. I've just put this on the screen just to finish us off on fixture swings. And what I've done is, because I think 7 to 10 was a period where we sort of like homed in on, somewhere around game week 7, I've actually put up a graphic there which shows, and look for the greens, right? So for attack, according to my fixture difficulty, Chelsea, West Ham, Norwich, even Southampton and Leeds are the biggest swings. And defensively, Leeds, Chelsea, Norwich, and Wolves. And on an average basis, Chelsea, Leeds, and even Norwich. Although that Norwich is pretty neutral. So I think, does this just sum up where we are? I think I still maintain that it's fairly subtle, but I do think there are fixture changes. Chelsea, particularly for me, stands out. So, Gabe, just finish this section with you, and then we'll move on to we'll whiz through fixture blocks. I want to make a general point on that, and then we'll look at rotation.
Sure. I think that the one thing I would say is, and it's kind of the way I read your FDRs here, Mariner, is looking for fixture swings not only be amongst teams where teams fixtures may swing, but also when you look at FDRs, if it's swinging between attack and defense, should we reinvest money if we're looking at like high level, right? Reinvest it, put money into defense when the fixture swing looks better for defenses in general across the board, and vice versa. So using FDRs to reinvest money between your lines, I think, is an important thing to.
That's a really interesting point, because I actually have already started to do a little preparation for game week 1 on the basis of what we've got. in front of us at this moment. And there are 4 teams, I think, who could get 2.5 goals or more. We're fairly confident. I think there's only 2 teams I'm pretty confident for clean sheets. And game week 1, there's always goals, right? Generally speaking. So that was just an interesting point. Now, is that going to point me at a 3-5-2 to start with or something like that? I think possibly starting with 3 defenders is probably where I might go. But yeah, you make a good point there. So anyway, that's just a very general point on fixture swings. Fixture blocks now. And I think this is... I prefer just to have a high-level discussion about this, guys. And Hibbo, how do we, when we're looking at this, should we consider the length of a block for a player by their position and by their value? So, blocks for me are more a jump-on, jump-off premium. I did that quite a lot last year. You can't own them all. So do you do that? Whereas, when you start talking about rotation, which we'll do in a minute, that's more of a budget sort of scenario in my view. Is that how you see it?
So how I see it basically in terms of fixture blocks is, for my attacking players, I will be looking like at a fixture block of at least 3 weeks, maybe 4, maybe 5. But if I was looking at defenders and their fixture blocks, I would definitely be looking a wee bit long term and maybe factoring out a bit of rotation. In terms of premium players, I will be looking at what weeks are they captainable. I think that's important.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'll say about defensive rotation, it's one of these things that's great in paper. People will turn around and say, "Oh, Ailing works with Fofana," and I don't know how. Sometimes you're as well just waiting to see how the game emerges and going, "This player has just popped out as a great pick at 4.5, getting them in and forgetting about your fixture." I've spent so much time in pre-season before looking at what works in terms of rotation, and then whenever it comes to the crunch, one of your players gets injured and your rotation is up to shit. But
we're going to come on to that in a bit.
People work rotations around 3 players, and then one player gets injured and the whole rotation is gone.
Or one player injured, or just you were wrong on one of the evaluations. On one evaluation, a fixture is actually not as good as you thought, or something like that. You're going to get things wrong.
Look at your own stones.
You know me, I love a bit of planning. Rotation is right up my street. I absolutely that's me all over. I look at fixture difficulty, try to identify a way of rotating my 4th and 5th defenders in the event of one of my premium defenders probably not starting or something like that particularly. And I like that type of scenario. I mean, just very quickly on attack, and again, before we go into defence, because we have got a slide for doing it. Have you seen that little gap for Chelsea around game week 5 and 6? But look how positive Liverpool are, right? Liverpool and Man City. Liverpool 3.3, 3.4. That could be, to me, that might be Salah and Mane territory.
I think it could be Salah and Jota territory.
Yeah, it could be. If Jota, I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Jota is not a great option, but I just don't think he's going to get. My worry is he's not going to get as many minutes. That was my initial thought. Is Jota going to be? We've had this with the algorithm at the end of last season. I had Jota down on minutes because I felt that Mane was the one who was going to get more time. So is that how that works? I don't know. But look, this is very general, so I'm going to leave this now. We're going to move on to defensive blocks and then very quickly touch on rotation, and then I want to let Gabe go. So we can talk about this till the cows come home, right? But I think high level, I think you make a good point, Hibbo. Captaincy for premiums, longer periods for defenders. We don't want to be locking in defensive moves, right?
You don't want to be locking on defensive moves, but you don't want to be making defensive transfers. Now, I've spoken about this before. It's like you want to be making high-impact transfers, and they want to be centered around your kind of midfield players and your attackers, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. So this is defensively wise. Again, very quickly looking at this, I highlighted the block of Brighton defence game weeks 2, 3, and 4, 2.4, 1.9, 0.9. So remember on my fixture, if you're not quite sure what these numbers are, go back to last week's show on fixture difficulty and watch that. That's the best thing I can suggest you do. It explains everything about it. But dark green, good. Dark red, bad. There's 3 very nice green fixtures there for Brighton. And of course, they're not bad at other periods either. yeah, we're still fairly positive. Chelsea, I saw a comment in the chat. Someone said Chelsea are quite fixture-proof in defence. I'm nearly with them on that. I don't know who it was. Was it John?
I think it was John.
I think it might have been John. If you look at those Chelsea fixture difficulties, I've highlighted 4 there between 7 and 10. But there's only really 1 negative in the first 10 for me, for Chelsea. I might start with a Chelsea defender on the basis of that. And I've already highlighted that potential double City block, right? Around 8, 9, and 10, which looks really favourable. And I've got the cat up here now. The cat has just decided to try and destroy Wembley, by the way. He's attacking the green screen. So if it collapses, you'll know what's happened. Just very quickly, before we move on to rotation, are we missing anything with the fixture difficulty here, Hibbo, do you think?
In terms of defence?
Yeah, just is there anything which leaps out to you which you think my FDR's not getting it? I mean, look, I'll say one thing. I've already said it, actually. I don't think my fixture difficulty treats Liverpool particularly favourably at all. Right? I know it doesn't.
No. And I am particularly keen on Liverpool, and I'm particularly keen on United, actually. Providing they're fit to start the season, I couldn't see me not starting my Shaw, if you know what I mean. Like, I think a 5.5 is like the game's bargain, to be honest with you. Like, his stats last season in terms of expected assists and what he was doing in terms of chance creation, I don't see how you could pass him up with 5.5.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So quickly then, moving on to rotation, and here we go. So the last bit of this was, again, trying to find some rotation. And to be honest, I've only looked at defence. I think that's where I probably would be likely to rotate. Now, it's a shame I've not had a chance to look at it, but there's a new thing on Twitter. I saw it the other day, and I reckon you should all have a look at it, lads, because it's done by FPL Rotation Planner. Well, it's spelt rotation wrong, but in his Twitter handle. But find him. I think it's RAOT Rotation. But find him, and I think he's just sent me a message earlier, and it's such a shame I've not been able to get it. I think now he's set it up so you can put your own fixture difficulty in.
Wow.
As well. So if that's the case, let's get on that. So shout out to Rotation Planner. I love giving shouts outs to new accounts who are doing really intuitive and ingenious new things. So shout out to him. But look at this. This is my fixture difficulty and my rotation. Again, I've highlighted Brighton and Leicester and Arsenal and Brighton. So, I mean, again, it's Brighton. We've got Brighton and Leicester. You could go, let's say, oddly enough, it doesn't like Burnley. Look at that. Wolves, Watford, Everton, Brentford, Brighton, Palace, Norwich, Brentford. And if we were looking at Arsenal and Brighton, we could start with Brentford, Watford, Everton, Norwich, Burnley, Palace. We'll play each other, then Crystal Palace. So I think there are options there. My fixture difficulty as well doesn't like Leeds too much. And I know there's been talks of Leeds. Is it Leeds and... was it Leeds Brighton rotation?
Leeds Brighton works. It does work.
Yeah. So, Gabe, what's your view on rotation? Is this something you do?
I think I would be careful with planned rotation to start the season. At the beginning of the season is it's the time where we have the least information, obviously, about the upcoming season. So, I mean, I think it's something to be mindful of, and I think this idea strengthens as the season progresses. But I just be careful of it. I think to Hibbo's point about not making defensive transfers, I think I would prefer maybe 3 just very safe defenders and rotate if you want to rotate the 4 and 5. That's fine. But I would not plan rotation for my second or third defender. I don't think.
No, I think it's a 4th and 5th. It is a 4th and 5th defender, and I think that's sensible. I think that's probably the only section that's why I've only put defense up for that reason. So okay, so that's that section. again, it's a little bit of a rattle through it, but we want to try and, again, make it, as we've said, try and make it high level and try and get you all thinking about it. So hopefully that's achieved that. So, right, I'm just going to lubricate my vocal cords for a second. We'll have a short break, and then we'll crack on with the next section.
Are you craving more FPL content? Then look no further than allaboutfpl.com. Head over there for weekly articles from some of the top content creators on the planet. So what are you waiting for? Head over to allaboutfpl.com, the website for all your FPL needs.
Well, there we go. So hashtag ad. Although they're free, aren't they? So it's not really for prize or anything. So it's fine. Hibbo's disappeared. I think he's gone to
He's gone to get a refill. Just before you start,
Gabe. Or a break. So anyway, right, now we're on to the challenge of owning new assets. And this is for you, Gabe. So
I think Nima wants to get a quick word in here.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
So just before you start, Gabe, I think we just peaked at like there was 30 people watching live a second ago. I think it's down to 29 now, but it's the most tonight. And considering it's like midnight on a Friday night, we just want to thank you all for being here with us. And it's awesome to see so many of you here and the hype for the new season. I guess for those of you who were here a couple episodes ago, we did a forfeit where I put on a Pikachu onesie for 50 likes. That's not what's going to happen today, but I just thought I'd announce that going forwards with each episode, I am going to start thinking of forfeits. So do tweet us if there's some forfeits you'd like the Net That Whole crew to do. Today, I just want to say we've been stuck on 21 likes for a while, and people have been coming and going. So it will be hugely appreciated if you can help us out and just smash that like button and bring that football home, please.
Well, I agree. I would just like to say, when it began, I can't begin to know, but then I know it's growing strong. Was it in the spring and spring became the summer? Who'd have believed you'd have come along? Hands, touching hands, reaching out, touching me, touching you.
Sweet Caroline. Well, what I promise you guys is I will upload the 1-minute video of me singing it with a microphone and this same outfit earlier for work. It's I hope it just doesn't get too far and wide because I'd hate people to think that that's me being serious because I'm not a very good singer.
That's me.
No, neither am I. I think I'm just
Next episode, I will bring the microphone for 100 likes. So that's the milestone.
I think I've woke the wife up as well. She's been coming and saying, "What the hell is going on?"
Oh yeah, no, sorry. We'll let you carry on, Gabe.
I'll tell you what. See if you boys won fucking Euro 2020, I'll sing "Sweet Caroline" next week.
Right.
Okay.
Or the week
Gabe.
after.
Gabe.
Gabe,
you're going to sing football's
you
coming
can
out.
do a duet.
I'll sing if Brazil lose the final of the Copa America,
Which is on this morning, I think. Is it my time?
Yeah, as long as that means it's tomorrow my time. I have no idea.
No idea what it is. Anyway,
I don't know what week you are.
Anyway, you've heard my dulcet tones, but yeah, we're trying to, we try to make it fantasy fun again. So let's hope you enjoyed that. I do apologize if you didn't. So anyway, Gabe, the challenge of owning new assets. Now, I describe this like Christmas. All right, you sat waiting. You're waiting for your breakfast and your cup of coffee, and you sit down there, and the kids are tearing the boxes open, and you open the box, you pull out a new toy, and the leg falls off the robot, just like FPL. So is the leg going to fall off? Let's hope the leg doesn't fall off. Someone like Jadon Sancho, because we need him for Sunday night. But that said, these new assets, they're a real challenge, right? Trying to work out whether they're good, whether they're not. Whether they're going to hit the ground running, whether they're going to be a Pookie or whether they're going to be a Werner. And then Pookie wasn't Pookie for long, was he? The party then soon stopped. Is our friend, Tony, right? Tony, another one. Is he going to hit the ground running? I've been messing about with 538.com about their prediction about their leagues, looking at the leagues, and I came up that the Bundesliga defenses seem about 25% weaker than the Premier League, and the Championship defences seem to be around 2/3 easier than the Premier League. Is this something it's an interesting debate, and probably not for today, but I'm going to keep this going. I'm going to concentrate on this as we go forward. But Gabe, let's look at it from the perspective of Jadon Sancho. So have you got your slides?
I do have my slides. I'll share them here momentarily. And let's see.
Woo! Let's go, lads.
One thing I will say, hold on. There it is. One thing I will say about that, when we've been having this discussion kind of offline, is, and I think Hibbo and I are coming from the place that it's not about, you can't really get a rubric from this, because it is about situation and individual and maturity and emotional intelligence and so many different things, right? So I'm sure you'll keep trying, Mariner. You'll keep crunching your numbers there and try to figure it out. But
I'm not saying it works, man. I'm just trying to get an understanding of, because if you looked at some of the examples, some work, some don't. There's some you could look at. Pookie went from like 29 to 10 or something like that, but clearly Bamford broke it the other way, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of
there'll
things
always be
which
the exceptions, right?
Yeah, but I'm a bit mindful of time, Gabe. So can we just? I don't want to cut you short. So I want to give you enough time, but as we've still got to come back to Hibbo for the last section of the show.
No problem. I will fly. I will fly through this. Well, let me fly through this already, then, Mariner.
All right, mate.
Take your time. Take your time.
So there are three sections here, and kind of three areas of expertise that I was looking at for Sancho. And the first one is his passing, vision and passing and creativity. The second one is his finishing. And the third one is defending, a specific area of defending, but defending in general. There's a little bit of a misconception and a little bit of accuracy with the criticisms and his defending. So in this first slide, it's this is a counterattack started at the back here, and it's leaving the Werder Bremen players behind. Sancho's taken the ball up. He's about, I'd say, about 15 yards, 10 to 15 yards, probably 15 yards inside his own half based on the lines on the field there. And he has, so I'm going to walk people through this for the people that don't have the benefit of the image in front of them. It's Erling Haaland right off his right shoulder there, and running into the space, which is marked by a yellow rectangle. Sancho, like any player would do in this situation, he sees the space and he takes his touch is a little bit inside. His first touch is a little bit inside. The reason he does this is so he can get in front of the trailing Bremen defender there. That's a normal move. Doesn't really say much. It's just the beginning of this progression. Where's my? Right, there's the inside touch. Now, the next play, he's about, let's say, about 30 yards further downfield. Now he's in the Bremen half, and he sees how Erling Haaland, one of the fastest players on the planet, he's definitely clocked as the fastest in the Bundesliga. His top speed this season, I think, was maybe 37 kilometers per hour, I want to say, something like that. He sees Erling Haaland kind of running into the space where he had initially taken a touch. And so he knows how fast Erling Haaland is and that he's going to get in front of the defender. So Sancho smartly takes a touch back outside to open up that space for the run. The added effect that this touch outside has is that it's driving the center back that's deepest for Bremen. He has to now shift over. Was covering the space where Erling Haaland is, but he has to kind of move closer to the ball. Otherwise, Sancho is free. It's kind of will be free on goal there. But here we see the next one. How Sancho has drawn both defenders, and he does this thing. So the central defender, obviously nervous about Haaland. They don't fully commit to pressing Sancho, because if they do, then Haaland would be too open. At the top of the box. And the effect here is that this lane, the lane where Sancho can play the ball through into Haaland, narrows. He recognizes this, so he pauses the ball. You see him in the image here. He's stepping over the ball with his right foot, and he's pausing it with the outside of his right foot. As he does this, if he pauses, then the passing lane is going to close down just naturally. Just everyone's momentum is going to take them where that passing lane that we're seeing now highlighted in the red lines there, that's going to close down. Let's say a less aware player will have forced that ball into that lane just because it's there. Sancho sees on another level. It's like playing 6-dimensional chess with Sancho, because he doesn't play there's an early ball he could have played up to, I think that is Gio Reyna on the far side. He could have played that early ball with the outside of his right foot into that space. He forewent that option. He could have played this ball in there. Again, two tight kind of areas. He foregoes this option as well. And once he does this pause, that's when the defenders collapse. It's a visual cue for the defenders to say, oh, he's stopping. We can press him more. As soon as the defenders collapse, we see that lane that I was talking about. It does close. It's highlighted there in the red arrow. And Sancho, almost like in mid-step, he just nudges the ball forward into a lane that was never even really there. Look, from this slide to this slide, he creates a lane with the pause that he makes on the ball. And Haaland is always going to get to that ball first, pops it over the keeper, goal. So for me, this is something with Sancho. He's explosive in that when the thing happens, when whatever happens is going to happen, you think to yourself, I never saw that coming. And Sancho, I think he sees this stuff very early on. One was extremely intelligent. Here's another example of kind of similar decision making by Sancho. He has the two obvious options. He has Guerreiro on the inside, and he has Julian Brandt on the outside there. Many players at this stage would probably play Guerreiro in. But if you look at the central defender, he's going away from Haaland to cover the Guerreiro run, right? So Sancho decides to not play that ball. Instead, he cuts inside. Look at what the Guerreiro does to the defense. On the outside defender steps in. The defender closest to Sancho steps towards him. And then the central defender inside has almost forgotten about Haaland. So Sancho, he knows the best player on the field is Haaland. And Sancho makes a move to try to get Haaland open. He could play this ball into Haaland. But if he does play that ball in there, Haaland will have two defenders crashing him quite quickly. Most players would play this ball. Just because it's there, just because it's available. Sancho's not that player. He doesn't play a ball just because he's able to do so. He wants to create more out of a play, and it usually works out for him. So we see Guerreiro's run continues. The defensive shape is a mess now, but this is a ball he could play too, and you can see Haaland asking for the ball with his arms. Again, most players would play this ball. But if you look at the central defender, his hips, he's planted his right foot, and his hips are like going into his right foot because he's about to cut back to Haaland. And Sancho somehow, with all of this happening, sees that movement. So he doesn't play that ball. He plays this ball.
Wow.
Like, where did this come from? Remember, from here to there, foregoes that, to there, to this ball on the inside. This, again, it's like another dimension of awareness here with Sancho. And his pause and his subtlety create opportunities. Haaland gets this ball as well. He gets there first, and this is a goal in the end. So that's his passing. His passing is off the charts. His vision is off the charts. His intelligence is like a player, and he's young too, right? He's 20, 21 maybe. He's going to be a superstar if this type of development continues. So that's his passing. Here's his finishing. I have the two yellow lines kind of drawn through Sancho's hips and through his plant's foot, right? Those lines are showing the direction of a far post strike. It looks like he's going to put his laces through this ball and just hit that thing far post. You can see how the goalkeeper, I believe it's Longer, if I'm not mistaken, he's leaning to his right side expecting this shot. Now, in between the moment where his leg is raised there, he cocks his leg back to the moment he strikes. Look how quickly he changes the angle of his hips and the angle of his foot. That ball goes in the other side. The goalkeeper's caught flat-footed. The defender is doing like a courtesy leg raise, and this knuckles into the near post.
Technically, he's gone the wrong way there, hasn't he? Like,
yes.
Technically, he should have had it across goal. Like,
he should have. That exactly. If he misses this shot, he's gonna get an earful from the coach, right? And say that you hit it, you put your laces through it, you hit it far post. That's what everybody's taught. And just to show that this is a pattern and not a one-off, look at this one. His hips are open to the far post. But he wraps his foot. You can see his pink boots wrapped around behind the ball, and his hips are pointing far post. He hits this ball near post, and the two horizontal yellow lines indicate which the direction the ball is going. The two diagonal horizontal lines indicate what his hips are showing. And you see the goalkeeper here is he's taking a step left. He actually has his left leg raised, and he's moving left as Sancho's striking the ball in this moment. As Sancho's striking the ball, the goalkeeper is moving left. He sells this move so incredibly well. So that's his finishing. Now to his pressing, and it's Sancho's. So the criticism of Sancho is that he doesn't track back. Now, I think people use track back for just defending in general. Sancho tracks back. You see him in this. So I've seen him kind of in this area of the field. It's not infrequent that you see him here. The question is what does he do when he does track back or when he does kind of confront the ball? Here he's tracking Gnabry. Sancho's on the right hand side, tracking Gnabry. Gnabry has Lucas Hernandez on the left flank, or Bayern's left flank, which would be Dortmund's right side. And this is pretty good pressure. He's blocking the space between Delaney and Meunier behind him, so there's no gap to go in to penetrate there. As Gnabry turns towards Lucas Hernandez towards the sideline there, Sancho pressures, and you see his pressure. He's getting tighter to him. As the closer he gets to the line, the closer Sancho's getting. So far, so good. This is really good. Let's see. It's a good step. It also prevents the ball being played back to Tolisso. Tolisso's number 24 there in the center of the field. So he's blocking that gap. He's still blocking the gap between. Now the gap is actually the defense is moved, and the gap is between Axel Witsel and Thomas Meunier right there. But his next step is confusing. He opens his hip here, and now he's running parallel to Gnabry. He's stopped pressuring. For some reason, he's made the decision to just kind of usher Gnabry towards the sideline, and he's given him more time and more space on the ball. So Gnabry does not have to worry about Sancho just because of this step. This step changes everything. I mean, at this point, Sancho might as well be holding his hand. He's just walking him through the park. Gnabry has all the time in the world, and now look what Meunier has to do. Meunier goes from covering, his hips are facing Lucas Hernandez. Now he has to get sideways, because if Gnabry gets past Sancho, which looks like that could happen, Meunier has to react. That stance actually opens up the wing for Lucas Hernandez. And Sancho is still moving away from the ball. There's the wing. And look who's in the middle. Like, Meunier cannot pressure Lucas Hernandez quickly enough. because Lewandowski he's already taking a step. He knows what's going to happen here. And this all began because Sancho stopped pressuring. Lewandowski gets to the ball first between 4 Dortmund defenders. And that's the end of that. And this one's on Sancho. This goal is on Sancho, and it's not the only time something like this happened. It didn't always end up in a goal, but his backing off pressure in crucial moments is. I think, and this is where, you know, mea culpa. I owe a big apology to Southgate, because I could not understand why Southgate wasn't playing Sancho, and now I'm seeing maybe this is why. Maybe he needs more intelligent pressure. And he gets that with Saka, and he gets that with Sterling. Although if I did one of these on Sterling, most of it would be how poor his attack is.
No, you're overly negative on Sterling.
Maybe I am. I like Sterling. I love his game. It upsets me that he can't finish, because I know he can, and it upsets me that he's not played on the right. I think Sterling's much better on the right.
No, I agree with you, Sterling, but what I will say about Sterling is he creates so many chances for himself by getting on the right spot, and I think that's where Sterling gets a bad rap. Now, I know this takes away from your Sancho piece and stuff like that, but be nice to Sterling.
I'll be nice to Sterling. I like the guy.
Coming home.
Sancho's coming home.
I'm delighted. Just
I'm not finished.
All right, I was going to say, because if you finished, I was going to shout something else out, because you've got something else. Here we go.
So here are the stats, and I call them narrative stats. So as far as passing, he has the second most progressive passes for Bayern. A progressive pass is a pass that travels more than 10 yards up the field, measured from where the furthest point back the ball was 6 passes ago. I know it's confusing, but basically he progresses the team forward. He breaks lines of pressure with his passing. He progresses the team forward. He also has the second most progressive passes received. So he's a target in breaking lines as well. And it's only second most because he missed 9 games. So Haaland has the most with 222, and he played 550 more minutes than Sancho. Sancho has 218 progressive passes received. Sancho also had the most shot creating actions of the team via key passes. He had the most key passes, the most dribbles that led to a shot as well, which we talked about his creativity. And then his pressing. Here are the stats that back the pressing analysis. And only 93 successful pressures compared to 115 for Gio Reyna, who often played on the other flank. And then his non-penalty expected goal involvement per 90 is 0.58, which is quite decent, I find. Again, stats like that, like dry stats like that, like an NPX XGI, take it with a grain of salt, because it's a different team, it's a different league, has all sorts of problems. But just thought I'd throw them in there.
Quick question. Where do you see him playing for United? Do you see him playing the left or playing the right?
It's tough to say. I think he might take some time to kind of. I think Ole might work him in slowly. For the team, he's probably better on the right because Rashford is better on the left. But if I think Sancho is more explosive on the left. I think he did a lot more, of those just really beautiful passing and combinations with the front man from the left. So it's really tough to say. If it were me, I would play him. I would play him on the left. And I got to say, I think Greenwood and Rashford would have to battle out for the right, but I don't think Rashford is good on the right at all. So it might be better for the team for Sancho to play on the right.
And how do you think, say Rashford playing the left, how do you think it would benefit, say, Shaw?
I think Shaw would be much better, and I mean like Trent level better if Sancho plays on the left, because Sancho and Guerreiro on the left hand side, they were beasts in the Bundesliga, and Guerreiro is a very similar player to Shaw in some ways. He doesn't get to the end line as much. He'll angle his run towards the near post, but he combines with the Guerrero combining with the man in front of him is phenomenal.
I've seen a bit of analysis of Sancho where he likes to get wide and he likes to stay wide, but he likes his fullback to overlap all the time. And I thought if he played in the left, that's why I'm kind of leading you with these questions. I kind of thought if he plays in the left, Shaw's potentially going to be like the best pick of the season. Like if Sancho plays in the left, but we don't know. I think Ole could maybe shuffle a deck and play some left, play some right, because he likes to play Rashford sometimes left and sometimes right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think he should, even within a game, he should move him around. But if he does that, if Sancho gets time on the left, then Shaw, I agree with you. Shaw is going to just explode.
So, a question in the chat from John: what effect do you think Sancho will have on Bruno?
Positive, very positive effect because of the passing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the effect in terms of just what that'll do to the gameplay. I think the Sancho Bruno combination will most benefit Cavani.
Interesting.
I think they'll both, but the Sancho Bruno combination will give them a high expected assist is how I would see that dynamic playing out.
I think it's like anything though. We're just going to watch and wait. Tom in the chat, I think needs to be what he's saying needs to be watched first. I think that's where I tend to be with this pricing. I'm going to be very interested in. I've sort of like back calculated. I've just posted it on Twitter just this second. I was only an hour in about whether I posted it or not, but I've just fired it and let's see how much abuse I get for it. But who cares? It's a thought provoker. If the defenses are 25% harder in the Premier League, I back calculated, given Sancho's minutes, that he'd probably be getting somewhere around 170, 180 points. Now, is that enough? At 10 million, that's not enough. 10.5, that's not enough. 10 million, that's not enough. 9.5, then you're starting to get to the level where similar price points per million as players around him last year.
No, well, 9.5 is not enough because that's what Rashford was doing.
And that's the point. And I think that's why I think, look, he could easily improve. He's only a young lad. I'm looking at the fact he doesn't improve at all. I'm just looking at numbers and just calculating it as we know that's not the case. But it's an interesting perspective. At what point do you think, okay, it's worth a go at, or at what point is he not? 9.5, I think I might have a gamble on him. 10 and a half, definitely not. I think
if FPL price him completely stupidly, I think if they price him at something like 8.5, I think he's going to be in everybody's basket. 9, maybe the same. 9.5, I think people aren't going to be interested. They start.
Yeah. It's an interesting point.
That's my view.
Just my perspective. You know me, I'm a numbers man. I come at it from a completely different angle to Gabe. I'm looking at it from where is he? Where's he going to go, and what might he produce? And I think it's just an interesting debate. So I thought I'd bring it up in the chat anyway. And if nothing else, people go to Twitter and carry on moaning at me in there. Perfect. Football's coming home. Right. Let's quickly go to Hibbo. Do you need to drink that? Well, you're muted then. I'm going to quickly come to you. We're at 1 hour 33. Do you reckon you can cover this in sort of like 5 minutes or so? That's it. 10?
Oh, of course.
I think he needs like a good 30 minutes.
I don't think so. There's only 2 slides. This is relatively easy. Right. Last but not least then, boys. It's been a busy show, but we're going to talk about team value, and it's something I pay particular attention in. I've got to be honest with you. I've done very well in the last couple of years to build my team value up to around about 107 million both times. And that makes a big difference when you're playing your second wildcard. And then you can get these structures that we were talking about earlier on in the show pretty easily. Whereas clearly at the start of the season, we're going to be scratching around trying to find that 500,000 here, 500,000 there. Clearly, team value is very important, Hibbo. You're going to explain it for the viewers and listeners for us.
Yeah, so I'll start by breaking it down. So in terms of building team value, I'll go through the absolute basics here. So player prices, so they can change by like 0.1 million a day, and they can raise or they can fall by like 0.3 million per game week. So very basic. So for each price raise over the original purchase price, FPL managers receive 50% of the profit rounded down. So if I'm going to bring this example to life, say we bought Mo Salah at say 12.5 million. If he rose to 12.6, the selling price would still be 12.5. If Salah rose again to 12.7, the selling price would then be 12.6. If he rose again to 12.8, his selling price would still be 12.6. So just hit the next slide for me there, Marner, would you please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Bear with me here. Yeah, I have it there. So I think the importance of understanding the price mechanism itself is understanding when price raises or price drops are going to affect your team value. So if you have Mo Salah and he's at, say, you bought him at, say, 12.5 and he raises to 12.8, the profit there, like the gross profit is, say, 0.3. The way you have to look at it is, if the gross profit is even, you could absorb the drop. If the bear with me here. So if the gross profit is even, you can't absorb the drop. If the gross profit isn't even, if it's odd, then you can absorb the drop. Now this is a key factor in the price mechanism, because if people don't understand how price works, they maybe can think, well, I need to make this transfer now. I can't wait until midweek. Whereas I think the important thing about a value-based transfer, or value-based, whenever you're looking at about how I'm going to build team values, you need to understand when you can make the transfer. So if you look on FPL itself, so on the transfer page on FPL on the website, you can actually change the view. So you can change it from, say, pitch mode to list view, and on that, it'll break down your squad's relevant prices. So it'll break down the current price, the selling price, and the purchase price. So this is fairly relevant to how you're going to make your decisions. Now, in terms of price changes, myself, I'm kind of a wee bit old school. I use FPL statistics. So what I will say is, at the start of the season, the site is it's potentially a wee bit volatile, because there's maybe 8 million players playing the game, so there's a lot of people making transfers at the one time. So at the very start of the season, price change information is quite volatile. So what I tend to do at the start of the season is I tend to go quite early with my price changes. But I know you guys, there's a deal there at the minute with Fix, and Fix gives you the option to load your team. That's correct?
I think so. I'm still playing with it, to be fair. I'm too busy thinking about football, about the European Championships name at the Hibbo at the moment. I can't get your name right.
No, but Nima could step on here. So I think with Fix, they give you an option to say load your team, and you maybe get updates on when your players are going to drop or when your players are going to raise. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it tells you things like they think your player is going to rise or drop in 2 days or in 3 days. So it even gives you like a heads up. So I used FPL statistics previously, just on a night-by-night basis, if I was like going to be priced out, to try and wait as many days as I could before making moves. But on Fix, I feel like because it preloads your team with your team ID, it is quite nice in that it actually gives you warnings and notifications. They have an app as well, so it is quite a nice way to keep track of your own team and maximize that team value early on.
These prediction programs, though, they don't have struggle early on with the algorithms, don't they?
You see, the problem earlier on is they don't know if the algorithm's been changed between this season and last season. So they're kind of guessing to a certain extent. And I suppose there's a kind of learning element in terms of their algorithm. They kind of gather information and say, how right are we? Are we correct? Are we not correct? But No, so if I was talking in terms of, say, value-based transfer strategy, so it depends how aggressive you want to be in terms of chasing price. And I think it's a classic trade-off. Now, it depends on a number of factors to me. So say there was European matches in midweek, or say AFL Cup games and stuff like that, I would never make transfers before those kind of games. Now, the general kind of rule of thumb for me would be never make those kind of transfers, but COVID kind of added an extra element. So we like whenever we came back, we had Project Restart and stuff like that. With COVID, you had players kind of self-isolating at short notice. You had fixtures being postponed, and we kind of had to delay our transfers. Now, what I would say about the Premier League in the coming season is I don't think it's going to be impacted that same kind of way. Vaccination program seems to be fairly rolled out. It looks as if all the players have been vaccinated. I don't think we're going to have circumstances where games are going to be called off. But at the same time, I would advise people to urge me a bit of caution and say, like, you know, in terms of kind of midweek games, I would never make kind of transfers and stuff. Now, what I would say about, say, like a wild card in terms of gaining team value, I think a wild card is one of the most important tools in terms of gaining team value. Now, early in the season, you're going to see the players that come out of the blocks. You're going to see the players that have kind of emerged from the pack as the value picks. You're going to see the players within your team that aren't performing. And they're maybe budget picks. They're maybe potentially going to drop in price. Now, I think in terms of the early wildcard, you've got a bit of double bubble in the fact that you can lose the players that aren't performing and you can jump on the players that are performing. And I think if you get that mix fairly right, maybe not in the initial week, but in the weeks after, you're going to reach a scenario where you've hit the best fit the players where, like, 2 weeks down the line, your competitors aren't going to be able to afford that kind of same mix of players. What I would say about being on a wild card is, if you have value accrued in a player and you are thinking about keeping them, never sell them and hit confirm in the transfer, because you're then going to lose that accrued value. Now, you're laughing, Chris. Have you done it?
I mean, I've done it before. I've done it myself. I did it myself. I was chuckling because I remember the first year that I was playing FPL. So, I've only been playing 4 years, and I actually remember doing exactly this. And then thinking to myself, oh, hang on a minute. Well, I can't do this now because I've lost the value in the players.
So that's something people need to be mindful of. Like, you know, if they're on a wild card and they have like value accrued in a player, go on the list view of their players and they can see their purchase price, their current price, and their selling price. Understand the price mechanism. Understand when they can sell them, when they can't sell them. But another thing I will say is the same thing applies in a free hit. And people don't really understand this because they think about a free hit and they think, oh, I have this team, but I get the same team back next week. Now, I've made this mistake. So say in a free hit week, say you owned Mo Salah and you bought Mo Salah for, like, say, £12 million, right? And Mo Salah was worth in your team, say, 12.5. And say in a free hit week, you decided, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep or sell Mo Salah, and you take him out of your team and you hit confirmed transfer. What will end up happening during the free hit is you'll have to buy him back at a more expensive price. Now, people don't, maybe it's a bit of a misconception, so they kind of think, oh, I'm going to get him back next week at my normal price. But if you sell him during the free hit and you have to buy him back, you'll pay the more expensive price for him. Now, the last kind of point I'll touch on in terms of price is like spot and value opportunities. So this is essentially about evaluating players and putting a value on a player and determining whether, well, are these players going to raise in price because I think they're cheap, or are they going to drop in price because I think they're expensive? And I think it all depends on, say we look at the game at the minute and we look at, say, Jack Harrison for Leeds United, I think is a good example. He comes in at £6 million. Look at what he done last season. I think he was technically at the start of the season Man City's highest scoring midfield player, even though he didn't play for Man City. He's now priced at £6 million. Rafinha's priced at £6.5 million. We've got Fofana priced at £4.5 million. And I think we only have to look at last season where James Justin, he was priced at £4.5. He hit the ground running. And I think an essential part of what we do as the FPL managers is we have to look at the market and we have to go, is he cheap or is he expensive? And see the guys that you think, are they cheap? Is there a good fixture run on them? Get on them. because what's going to end up happening is their price is going to skyrocket very quickly if they do what you think they're going to do. So another kind of thing I'm going to touch on is injuries can create an opportunity within teams. So a player that's maybe previously not an option, all of a sudden, I think we've seen it. Okay, Gundogan was playing a bit last season, but when KDB got injured, we've seen Gundogan becoming more important in the team. We also see players maybe getting spot kick duties, which is very important in terms of fantasy. So all of a sudden, somebody's got penalties. They're a more valuable asset. And I think there are things we have to look at in terms of a value point of view, because all of a sudden, if a player looks like they're going to get penalties, they're going to be a more valuable asset.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. There's a debate going on about Harrison and Rafinha in the chat at the moment, actually, interestingly enough. I suppose we're a bit short for time, so we're going to have to get out of here shortly, but I thought we might just address that point, guys. Nima, what's your perspective on the Harrison and Rafinha debate?
I do like the 0.5, but I don't think that's enough of a saving for me to want to be considering it. I would just go for Rafinha because I said in the chat that I think within a year or two, Rafinha will be signed for like some crazy sum of money by a big six club. So for me personally, Rafinha's got a higher ceiling to grow as a person and a player. I know there's some talk about Harrison being in and around the national team. I'll think of a forfeit for you for next time when Harrison is not anywhere near that World Cup squad for England next year. Like he's not, they sold him for pennies from City. Like he wasn't City quality. He's great in the lead system. He gets points, but I'm not convinced that he's going to keep overperforming the way he did. And I think Rafinha will come back to the norm and make up for his missing points.
I have to say, I thought this was a point I was going to make, and I'm going to bring you in, Gabe, on this. I mean, you're big on the eye test. I'm big on the numbers. Rafinha ticks both boxes. You agree?
Yeah, but like Nima was saying, Rafinha, he got off to a slow start, or he wasn't starting initially. But yeah, I agree. Tom Stevenson in the chat mentioned Rafinha is also on set pieces, which is a big deal. And then the one thing I'll mention is Harrison, not on several occasions, got pulled at around halftime. He got taken off the field around halftime. Yeah. So, and that didn't happen to Rafinha. So whether it's tactical, if he's or it's a performance thing, I'm not sure.
No.
But
he got Bielsa's bucket, didn't he? He got Bielsa's bucket a few times.
Yeah,
I remember that. I owned him actually. I think the week that he got hiked off at half time, and I distinctly remember someone saying in the chat, "He always gets substituted, Chris. What you bought him in for?"
I think I remember, Chris. You were going to get the Rafinha, Harrison, Bamford triple up and not get Dallas.
That's right.
During that doubles period and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Something like that. I know it came back to bite me. I'm a Rafinha man for this season for sure. I think he's ridiculous value, quite frankly.
I think one thing I'll just add is you're obviously a stats man, as you say. Gabe's more of a eye test man. I'm kind of someone who a lot of what I do in FPL is around just enjoyment. I will pick a player because I want to watch them. Yeah. I would rather watch Rafinha and support him than Harrison, and that's just me. Like I pick players for fun. Like I want points, but I want to have fun.
Again. MFFA. Make fantasy fun again. Own Rafinha. The trouble is then if everybody listens to this, everybody owns Rafinha, then I'm not going to have so much fun because he's going to be too highly owned. I mean, his ownership could be ridiculous, couldn't it? In a few weeks.
Could be. But no, Nima makes a good point. I tend to do it with my defence, and that I like to have a sexy defence, if that makes any sense. Like I don't want to have centre backs, I want to have like kind of attacking fullbacks because it's fun,
because that's what you are, Hibbo. That's what you are.
I mean, if we were going the opposite way, then we'd all sign Connor Cody and plays like that, right? I mean, that's the complete polar opposite of an interesting asset for me. Just bores me to tears. Gets a nosebleed when he goes across the halfway line.
I'll never
buy Cody and Fofana.
Well, Fofana's 4.5. I don't mind that. He's cheap.
So is Connor Cody.
Is he? Has he gone down?
Yeah.
Oh well, that's
Cody's 4.5.
Is he? Oh, I still won't own him. I don't like
Yeah,
it. I like
me
Trapp.
neither. Exactly.
He's in my draft team.
It's my Rob Holding.
Holding on for a hero till the morning.
Yeah, more singing. Anyway, right, boys. I mean, there's been a few questions flying around, but I think we've answered most of them. So I think what we'll do is, I don't think we need to spend too much time, apart from just wrapping up. Really, 20 minutes over. Well, not too bad. But guys, I mean, it was a big old show. What we've done is we've covered 4 chunks again, which people can come back and look at in isolation. Look, if you want the team structure, I thought every single section has brought something to the table for the viewers and listeners. So I think it's mission accomplished. Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Hibbo, what's the plans for the weekend? Do you get the bunting up and things and the Italian flags? Yeah.
No, it'll be Peroni Moretti, margherita pizza, antipasti. No, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm going to watch this match. See if these boys won Euro 2020. I take my hat off these. He's deserve it. Do you know what? Like, I'm not one of these fans that's like fucking begrudging, and it's not me. Do you know what I mean? And I wouldn't shit in your enjoyment. Do you know what kind of way?
Thanks, man. Well, I mean, look, I would go as far as there's 2 England fans on here at least. So, Nemo, what's your plans?
I've got a bar booked in Covent Garden, so
yeah,
that's going to be fun. I've promised some of our resident Canadians in the FPL group chat photos with the moose. There's a giant. I'm going to a Canadian bar, but it is coming home, and I'm sure I'll be sending some video clips on Twitter over the weekend.
Yeah, I might even go live on YouTube if we win.
do it in the raw. Do it nude.
He's gonna wear the flag like a toga, and that's it, just the flag.
And then you're gonna see the stream cut out when the Singapore Special Services knock on his door and break down the bathtub door.
No, in all seriousness, there's a good chance that I'll have the security round. I had them round for the World Cup. They knocked on the door and they went, "Excuse me, sir, there's been a complaint about the noise." And I just looked. I went, "Football's coming home," and slammed the door. No, there's only me and the wife and the cat watching it. We can't go out. We're still only 2 people in groups outside, and there's no football on. They're not even showing the football outside. So, yeah, what to do? Anyway, football's coming home, as we've said. So, guys, FPL-wise, all we can say is thank you very much. We'll see you next week. We'll announce what the structure of what we're doing next week in the week, because I don't think we've quite decided. We've got rough ideas, but we're starting to get to the point where we need to start thinking about teams and start thinking about assets. So we'll be back next week as normal. Give us a like for this video, please. We would really appreciate it.
Give the video a like. Come on, boys. Hit that like button as quick as you can.
Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications.
Download the podcast.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're fed up of listening to people saying football's coming home and this, that, and the other, then maybe you don't want to listen to this pod, but maybe you should go back and listen to one of the other ones. Gabe, just very quickly come to you because I realised I missed you out. What's your plans for the final?
Same thing, full Italian affair, have to, like most of the world, most of the planet, we're behind the red Forza Azzurri.
No, I'll be
Did you notice that was a deliberate mute?
Yeah.
Yeah, I deliberately muted you there.
I noticed.
I'll be completely honest with you. I fancy, see if England don't do it. I fancy England.
I think it'll be a great game. But I'm just going to finish with an ode to England. You've got to hold and give, but do it at the right time. You can be slow or fast, but you must get to the line. They'll always hit you and hurt you, defend and attack. There's only one way to beat them. Get round the back. Catch me if you can, because I am an England man. It's coming home, boys. It really is coming home.
Notice how that started.
We will see you all. We will see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody. All the best.